travelers, fearful to walk through an apocalyptic streetscape in Greenwich Village to the crumbling understructure of the West Side Highway, the abandoned warehouses, and the dilapidated piers along the Hudson River. We survived the journey, and I have lived to marvel at the rebirth of the Manhattan waterfront and the city of New York. This book views the history of the Manhattan waterfront as a struggle between public and private control of what is New York City's most priceless asset. From colonial times until after the Civil War, the city ceded control of the waterfront to private interests, for the latter to build a maritime infrastructure. With only finite space available, despite the man-made land along the shore, a battle ensued among shipping interests, the railroads, and the ferries for access to the waterfront. The public was excluded from the water side. In the second half of the 19th century, the city of New York regained control of the waterfront, and Manhattan and the Port of New York remained preeminent until after World War II. A whirlwind of forces beyond the control of either public or private interests followed. Crime on the waterfront, the revolution brought about by containerized shipping, the de-industrialization of New York City and its metropolitan region, the changing ethnic and racial makeup of the waterfront neighborhoods, and the ecological vulnerability of the extension of the Manhattan shoreline out into the Hudson and East Rivers. Hurricane Sandy provided a devastating warning of the consequences of global warming. New York recovered from the depths of darkness in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. The Manhattan shoreline has been reimagined as a place for the public to enjoy and the affluent to live. A complicated web of public and private initiatives has transformed the waterfront from the center of the city's maritime world to a magnificent setting for leisure and recreation. 1. Growth, Decline, and Rebirth. Manhattan Island, just 22.4 square miles in total, 23 miles long, and, at 14th Street, 2.3 miles wide, would emerge as the most populous place in the United States and the country's preeminent city. Until consolidation took place in 1898, the island alone constituted the city of New York. Brooklyn, across the East River on Long Island, was a separate city, and the outer boroughs remained largely rural farmland. At the time of the first U.S. Census in 1790, the Atlantic seaboard cities, Boston, Newport, Philadelphia, and Baltimore, vied to capture the new country's maritime commerce. By 1850, New York City's population had soared to over 500,000, and it reigned as the leading metropolis in the country. The growth and prosperity of the port explains the dominance of the city in the 19th century. Manhattan became a global city by building maritime links across the oceans, along the Atlantic coast, and inland to the Midwest and New England. The shorefront of Manhattan Island, the boundary between water and land, served for hundreds of years as the center for the trade, shipping, and commerce of the nation as the port became the busiest in the world. No other activity took precedence over commerce. The shore remained a place apart, a world of piers and docks, longshoremen, and ships, tugboats, and ferries filled with cargo and freight, as well as a site where millions of immigrants entered the promised land. Nature provided New York with a sheltered harbor, but to flourish, the port required a complex maritime infrastructure of wharves, piers, warehouses, and waterfront streets to facilitate the transfer of goods and people between water and land. A busy port depended on a large workforce of itinerant day laborers who lived nearby and would be available on the docks in all weather as ships arrived and departed. A prosperous seaport needed substantial investment in its waterfront infrastructure to provide ships and merchants with access at reasonable costs. New York faced a challenge here: to find the necessary capital to build and expand its maritime infrastructure. In the 17th and 18th centuries, the city's government did not have the responsibility or the fiscal resources to develop needed port facilities. To build this infrastructure, the city gave away a precious asset: the land under the water around the lower part of Manhattan Island. The municipal government awarded these water